wish I could do a good Galloway voice impression, because it's like, I do, some of the gestures in the decision are very...
You gotta go through because Matt Moore knows all of it, dude. Yeah, you need to spend a lot of time with Galloway.
Okay. The overview, there's an overview, the criticism, starting with the permutation, and then back to the top.
Oh, I don't have a framework.
The counter plan. And actually, the counter plan and then the criticism, sorry. And then the case.
Sorry.
Overview, counterplan starting with, counterplan critique starting with the permutation.
Yep.
That's all problems.
And then the case. Is everyone ready? There are two impact terms to the concept of collective agency. The laws and ethics extend the Roosevelt Uponic evidence. Pedagogy of collective action exonerates our responsibility towards the other because we believe that these relationships can be mediated by external authority. This allows the worst response because we assume that we are not agents in oppression. The ethics DA culminates in the Holocaust, which outweighs in turns negative arguments because it provides primary justification for violence. The impact of violence that trumps all the questions. You have the alternatives unethical, then starting point of pedagogy should be rejected. The abuse community bad except the Norse. And the evidence tied individuals to collective concepts of the community leads to purification strategies or also justification for war and violence. We must retreat instead from the realm of politics for evidence because it answers the larger question of how we interact with law, i.e. the reason that capitalism is destructive is because it forces us to communicate, to be part of the community. This is an impact turn to your argument of collective action, and you have barely answered in the 2 and R, the counter plan flow. The radical re-explanation of the alternative justifies new framing and impact arguments, i.e. our uniqueness claims the amount of time the 2 and R spent justifying should be a red flag that something they did to justify new reframing arguments. They say I'll answer the arguments on the community extend the Nancy Norris evidence. They say that we make people competitive with each other, but our internal link to the community arguments that tie individuals to a notion of community ID, the idea that individual actions fail, we must instead have collective agency is exactly what leads to purification strategies. We have solid history on our side because this is what happened in Yugoslavia, etc. They say that we don't have to agree with this argument. However, your argument about collective agency is exactly what our evidence is saying. This is that when you tie individuals to a concept of community, that is how purification strategies happen because suddenly strategies like street artists are purified from the negatives ideology, i.e. every time they say the permutation is mutually exclusive is another reason why they do not allow individuality. This is the root cause of purification, and this is why capitalism is so dangerous. We have a better root cause argument, and it's because they lead to these purifications. The other arguments that collective action is good, but that collective action is not mutually exclusive with individuals. Arguments that when you tie every individual to a community that leads to purification, the example would be their attempt at mutual exclusivity, i.e. if you are not collective action, you should be rejected, allowed to die. Those people who believe that things like street art, street performance, etc. are effective for them to have a beautiful life. The ethics debate, they say that pedagogy solves that is not true. Your definition of the public sphere is that it is only the government, which means that you should always view their lens of collective action as the government doing something. They cannot sever out these arguments. It's the same way we cannot sever our temporary autonomous, which means their pedagogy does not solve. It simply exonerates our arguments to external authority. They say the trans people do whatever we want, but this makes people ultimately responsible, which answers their Bookchin as well as their Boberg evidence, because indicates that even if we can do whatever we want, you're ultimately held individually responsible, which means that you cannot say it is the court's fault that I am violent because they have defined Detroit as beautiful. Instead, you have to say it is my fault that I'm violent because Amy wants to hit me. They say there is no impact to ethics, but I've explained this argument above. Ethics is a primordial justification for the rest of your actions. If we win that they are unethical, that they are the justification for purification strategies, they say permutation does not solve that. It's not an answer to our argument. We are not going for our law good arguments, obviously, because we have now defended the law. The criticism, permutation. Except the permutation, this also all the arguments has a couple that benefits the laser Giroux evidence. The definition of the public sphere is solely the state is criticized by the Giroux evidence. We must instead recognize the ability of street art and performance to influence the public sphere. RF embraces the beauty of these everyday forms of resistance. The permutation solves the Giroux evidence better because it recognizes that the struggle against corporatization has to take place outside of the school as well. Giroux also criticized the notion of materiality. Look, we are seriously going to ask you to read every part of the Giroux evidence and tell us that it does not conclude permutation. All we have to win is that along with struggles for collective action, you should also have struggles which allow for artists to create beauty, street art, etc., which all in engages in the public sphere. This also takes out all of their link arguments about how we ignore the public sphere, because Giroux's definition of the public sphere would include things like public art, which is the 1AC, little b is the remedies or link arguments, fiction, bar book, etc. Our criticisms of exclusively focusing on the temporary autonomous zone. If we win our arguments that we will win that any exclusive focus is bad, we should not give up on everyday politics simply because there is collective action. Instead, we must embrace all avenues of resistance, which gets me to my little c, which is our blanker evidence's offense interpretations of the 1AC should not be stable. Instead, we should recognize the fluid nature of resistance. The 1AC has established a fissure within the dominant discourse that we can inhabit, homeless style, if you like. This does not deny the dominant discourse exists. However, recognize that the dominant discourse can be manipulated. It does not have to define us. The entirety of their evidence is based on the concept that the dominant discourse is impenetrable, which we have one that does not happen there. Have few shady answers to the permutation. The first, the alternative precludes possibility, but co-optation is a conceded disad. The alternative, which takes out their offense, you just send the bait evidence. Martyrdom also is an equally violent argument, which is an internal link magnifier to all of our evidence. They say Giroux equals no vocabulary, but their definition of the public as exclusive with street art denies our ability to access these things. They also have no uniqueness to the arguments because collective state action has led to the deterioration of Detroit, the status quo, and it's pretty bad. The entirety of the 1AC is conceded that this allows no agency, etc., which means the core in their world will still define Detroit as ugly. If we cannot find beauty within the system, we have no agency or subjectivity, which is a disad to their alternative. If they want to talk about disads, we have like 4, and they have little risk of a case turn. Now, at the top of the debate, all these arguments, they said that powerlessness, but we are the opposite of powerlessness. I've extended the argument above the Giroux says street art, etc., and participation in collective action can be the affirmative. They see violence as individual. Have extended their offense there. The individual notion of responsibility solved that their collective class struggles, their capitalism outweighs arguments answered by our community norms argument. They say we have to have collective class struggles. Permutation solves all of their collective arguments. Their trade-off arguments don't make sense in a world where the Giroux evidence says we have to recognize the beauty of street art, etc., which means that our arguments all through their ad homs about Hakeem Bey, however, they do not apply to the incorporations of Bleicher's analysis of the dominant discourse, nor the fact that they don't have a link to their offense in this room, because nothing that you can do with your ballot can solve capital. Your ballot can simply be an affirmation of beauty, which is our temporality argument. The case debate, the majority of this is answered above their task collapses and authoritarianism doesn't make sense, because I don't think the three of you can be authoritarian. No offense, but I'm pretty sure I could kick 2 of your asses, and they say we're not going to the content which accesses arguments with permutation remedies. The majority of their case arguments, as long as we incorporate the criticism of discourse. So with our criticism communities, this is not offense. I mean,